In your words, what is the county executive?
Well, I mean, if I had one sentence, it's to lift up people in this county,
Mm-hmm.
to help people thrive, to help people improve their lives. We are a poor community generally. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's pockets of big wealth, but
Mm-hmm.
there's also large pockets of poverty. We need to make sure that everybody has opportunities to move ahead and that we help them. It's not just, taking away barriers. That's important, but it's also supporting people to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done that over and over again in
Mm-hmm.
many, many ways. That's the job of the county executive.
Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? You tuned in to another episode of Strategic Moves. I'm your host, Ken Dow. This is a place where I bring art, culture, politics, and business all together, and I do it every Sunday. And if this is your first time coming to our show, I want to welcome you to our show. Today, I got a guest who is a good friend of mine. He's somebody who's been in politics in this county for a very long time. Him and his family have dedicated their lives to helping enrich the people of Cuyahoga County, and he is now retiring as county executive and going to be moving on to some other things. So everybody, I want to welcome County Executive Armond Budish to the show. Thank you, Tim. Yes. Hey, Armond. So, man, I really want to appreciate you coming on our show. This is a show that I get an opportunity to bring in folks to talk about various different topics. It's a laid back conversation, and we get the chance to talk about some stuff. As you know, me and you worked on several projects over the years, and as I tell people all the time, man, I'm an Armond Budish fan. So I truly believe that if you wanted to do another term, I believe you could have. And I believe you would have wholeheartedly won, in spite of all the critics who might be out there saying otherwise. So that's what I believe in.
Thank you, Ken. It's great to see you again. You've done some really good work for the county, and I appreciate that. So thank you for that.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. And if it wasn't for people like yourself and Bill and other folks, man, that gave me opportunities and make sure that I'm always involved, man, I really appreciate you guys always looking out for me.
One of the big things that we've wanted to do in the county is outreach. We
Mhm.
wanted to make sure that we come up with a lot of good programming, and I'm very proud of that. If we don't get the word out, though, that these great programs are available, they don't help people that need it.
Mhm.
So that's where the outreach comes in, and that's where you come in. You've been very helpful on that. So thank you.
Again, I thank you. Thank you for giving me the chance. So let's talk to the people in here because we was talking about my audience. I'm a fresh new voice out here in YouTube University and YouTube world. And when I first started doing the podcast, I was putting it out there and I was trying to put it through my little Facebook buddies and people like that to say, hey, watch the show, watch the show. And I was getting some of them. Then a friend of mine came to me and said, man, this is the World Wide Web, man. What are you doing? You got to get out there to the world. So our audience then grew, man. We got over 1,000 subscribers now. We're
Great.
doing great in that regard. So for the people who don't know who Armond Budish is, tell them, man. You got to tell me about Amy and your son. So we're going to start.
Oh,
Let's
thank you
go there.
very much. Well, Amy's my wife, for people who don't know. She's been my partner at everything I do.
Mhm.
For example, I've wrote a newspaper column for 24 years,
Mhm.
edited every single one of those
Wow.
columns.
Wow.
I've written 3 books,
Mhm.
and she's edited those.
Wow.
She has been a great consultant, advisor,
Mhm.
and friend to me along the way, and when I ran for public office, she was there with me every step of the way.
Excellent.
So, and you have to do that with how much work, how much energy goes into being county executive, for
Yes,
example, or
yes.
being a state legislator. If you don't have a good relationship and a supportive spouse, it's not going to work.
No, it's
So-
not. And she's been there with you every step of the way. And we see you out on the weekends. She right there with you. So that's
She
really
is.
cool.
She is.
Man.
And now you asked about my kid.
Mhm.
I have a son here in town,
Okay.
Daniel, and he just opened the Studio West 117th project. It's at
Hmm.
West 117th and Detroit.
Okay.
It's a whole neighborhood that he and his partners have created
Mhm.
to support the LGBTQ community.
Okay.
So they have restaurants, they have apartments, they have bars.
Saw them on Kenny Crumpton was
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. I saw Kenny
Yeah.
Crumpton was just out there this
Ken-
week. Sure was.
And they were in the New York Times recently.
Okay.
The New York Times sent a reporter
Mhm.
out for their grand opening. So
Okay.
I'm very excited for him. I can't believe he's taken on such an ambitious project.
Yes.
I mean, to open one restaurant is a
Mhm.
big deal. He's
Mhm.
got 3 restaurants
Wow.
and bunch of bars
Mhm.
and a field house for sports, and
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's all designed for
Yeah.
LGBTQ
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, I saw that on Kicking It with Kenny. They showed the gym, and I think they had a rooftop bar,
Yeah,
isn't it?
rooftop
Yeah,
bar, owned
rooftop
the
bar.
first rooftop bar in
Yeah,
Lakewood.
yeah. I saw that. So, yeah, and it looked real nice. I
It
saw
is
yeah, it looked real
beautiful.
nice. Yeah, I
Yeah,
did see that. So, excellent. Alright, I didn't know that was your son's
that's my
involvement.
son. Yeah,
Okay, excellent,
I'm very proud of him.
excellent.
My other son is working in Boston
Mhm.
for Meta, used to be Facebook,
Oh,
and he's enjoying himself. So,
mhm,
what can be better than you have
mhm.
a supportive family and a family that's been very successful?
Now did Meta go out of business, or was Meta having some issues or
No,
something?
yeah, they all are. Instagram
Mhm.
is part of Meta. What's it?
Facebook?
Meta is Facebook.
Okay, Meta is Facebook,
Yeah,
okay,
Facebook and Instagram are both owned by Meta.
okay.
They just had the layoff of like
Right, that's what I heard.
1,200
Oh,
people
right,
or
okay,
something. I mean,
okay.
it's 12,000 people.
Right, right.
And thankfully, my son was
Made it through
safe.
it.
He made it,
Wow.
but a lot of these companies are having
Yeah, they're
trouble
having
right
big
now.
time trouble
Yeah.
right now. So when I first met you, you were well. When we first, Armond was known for doing what was it,
Golden
Golden
opportunities.
Opportunities on
That's it.
Sundays. You
That's
see
it.
Armond Budish every Sunday on Golden Opportunities talking about programs to help seniors, and
That's
I
it.
believe
It's
that
been
was the
my
thing.
passion.
Been your passion all along. So from that, you decided to run for a state representative.
I
That's when I
did.
think I first met you, and you went down there. And so, how did you go from state representative to speaker? Right.
I did. I ran for state rep in 2005,
Mhm,
started running 2006 election, and I was successful. Got
mhm,
elected from area, little part of Cleveland,
mhm.
Shaker Heights, University Heights, a bunch of those communities, and we were in the minority.
Mm,
And being in the minority is not fun
right.
because you can't get anything done,
Correct.
especially in this polarized atmosphere that we have today.
Mhm.
Republicans won't even talk to us if we're Democrats.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I was not happy with that, and I decided I would make an effort to try to take the majority.
Mm,
So I went out and worked. I raised money for not just my campaign, but all the campaigns for the Democrats in the legislature.
mhm,
We recruited. I went statewide recruiting candidates,
mm.
and lo and behold, we went from 46 to 53.
Wow.
You need 50 to be the
Wow.
majority. So
Okay.
we took the majority. It was the first time
Mhm.
that the Democrats had taken the majority in the House in I don't know, decades. And it was the first time somebody from Northeast Ohio, from Cleveland, had become speaker ever, I think. I mean, it was very unique.
Mhm.
We unfortunately had still a Republican Senate.
Mhm.
And just like you've seen in Washington with
Mhm.
a Democratic chamber and a Republican
Right.
chamber, they don't necessarily come to a whole lot of agreements.
Mhm.
And we had trouble getting things through.
Mhm.
We sent a lot of things over to the Senate that died. We worked very hard, though. We had a Democratic governor. He was very supportive, Governor
Right.
Strickland.
Right.
Unfortunately, Governor Strickland and the Democrats lost in 2010,
Mhm.
and then they redistricted, changed all the districts, and
Took all those
that
seats
was
back.
it. I don't know that when the Democrats will ever take power again.
So what did you most enjoy about being speaker?
Well, you may recall 2009,
Mhm.
2010 were the 2 years I was a speaker.
Mhm.
The economy cratered. I
Right.
mean, it was
Right.
horrible.
Right.
That's really why Governor Strickland was
Right.
not reelected.
Exactly.
Not for anything he didn't do,
Mhm.
but the biggest accomplishment was keeping things afloat without raising taxes.
Mhm.
And we did that.
Mhm.
It was a terrible time trying to make ends meet for the state, keep our programs going that were important so that people who were the ones suffering from this recession could continue to survive and
Mhm.
thrive. We lowered property taxes across the state in the midst of a recession.
Wow. Okay.
We passed civil rights legislation for LGBTQ.
Mm.
We created a number of programs for jobs. The biggest thing is we passed, and this we did we got the Senate on board, the
Mhm.
Republican Senate. It's called the Third Frontier Program.
I remember. Yeah.
The Third Frontier had been created initially years before
Mhm.
by Bob Taft.
Mhm.
The money was running out.
Mhm.
It either needed to be renewed or expanded or it would die. And that program has been fabulous for Northeast Ohio.
Oh, okay.
More of the money has gone up here than anywhere. And that has been to support startup businesses, basically. We not only renewed it, we increased it to $750 million.
Wow.
And that money is still going out today to support businesses. So that's probably the biggest thing we accomplished. One other thing I want to mention is we really focused on supporting and getting minorities into responsible positions, into
Okay.
jobs, into
Hmm.
businesses. So Ohio State University had decided to build a medical center, a $1 billion program.
Wow.
I have a good friend, Sandra Williams. She was a state representative at that time. She was
Hmm.
also head of the Ohio Legislative Black
That caucus.
Caucus.
Yeah.
And she and I worked together very closely and very well. She came to me and said, "We got to make sure that minority businesses are getting a nice chunk of this work.
Hmm.
I mean, $1 billion. Let's make sure." So I set up a meeting for her and me and Gordon Gee, President Gee of
Hmm.
Ohio State.
Hmm.
And Sandra was brilliant, and she was able to persuade him, I
Okay.
use that in quotes, to make sure the promise that we would get, and that in fact the minority community did get a huge part of that job. In addition, one other big project was we legalized casino gambling.
Yes. Right.
And
Right.
again, we knew that there was going to be millions and
Hmm.
billions of
Hmm.
dollars coming through that.
Hmm.
And they were building 4 casinos around the state. We wanted to make sure, and again, Sandra and I worked very closely
Hmm.
to make sure that minority businesses, minority contractors got a big chunk of that business. And we got pushback, got a lot of pushback on that. They didn't want to be burdened with having to allocate funds. And we held up the legislation. This was one of those examples where you have a time limit. We were getting ready to terminate the session.
Hmm.
We put one of those where you cover up the clock
Right.
because the time has passed,
Hmm.
and we just kept pushing, and we said, "Look, we're not going home until
Until
we
we
get
get
this
this
done."
passed. Right.
And we got it done.
So that was the second time, because the first time it didn't pass, right? I think they tried to
The
bring casino.
casinos had been voted down many
And
times.
right,
Yeah,
yeah. So that was a big feat right there to get that done at that time.
it's a
Because
big feat. No
yeah.
other legislative leader had stepped forward.
Hmm.
The day after I became speaker,
Hmm.
I was interviewed by one of the news media, and they asked me at the very end of an hour-long session,
Hmm.
they asked me, "What's your position on casino gambling?"
Hmm.
And I said, "I got nothing against it."
Right.
Well, that became the headline. It was 20 seconds of the hour-long interview, but
Mhm.
that became the headline that new speaker supports casino gambling.
That's all they needed.
And that's all it needed.
That's all they needed. That's it. So you did decide once you did that, and what changed you from speaker to saying, I think I might want to do this county executive thing?
Yeah.
What was that all about, and how did you transition into that?
So in 2010 November, the elections went forward and the Republicans swept the state. We lost the majority in the House. I was still elected the minority leader, but
Mhm.
again, being in the minority is no
No,
comparison to being in the
not
majority.
down there.
Not down there. It's awful.
Uh-uh.
So did that for basically rest of my terms
Mhm.
down there. And
Mhm.
then when I was term limited, I was thinking about what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
County executive opened up.
Mhm.
Ed Fitzgerald decided to run for governor, and I announced my intention to run, and that's history.
I know that's right. And you had a lot of help getting you going. And I know one of our guys here, we got a picture over there on the wall. He was very instrumental, Mr. Arnold Pinckney, in helping you get
Absolutely.
going. I know.
Absolutely. I saw the picture over there.
Mhm.
Arnold Pinckney and Dr. Cavanis came together and met with me and decided to support me and put together a committee of clergy people.
Mhm.
And it was the best support that I had.
And I think that the reason why I believe that made you different than the prior county executive, and I can even go as far as right now with the way the new county executive had gotten elected, is the relationships. I think relationships in this town is important. I believe that there's old ones and there's new ones. So I am big enough to say, yeah, there's some new relationships that need to be had and we should grow. But I still believe it's important to have the old ones as well. And talking about the stuff you did in the state house to help minorities, working with Sandra and bringing them in. I know what you've done when Cavaness and Mr. Pinckney and other African American leaders, because it was them. And then from there, you had the support of African American leaders behind you over the years, and you always had that. Is what makes you feel like one of ours, and we feel good about it, versus we just don't know what's going to be the future or what's next. And that's not to say that this guy is bad. It's just the way people do things now. It's just a different way. We're going to get into this executive thing because that's what everybody came here to hear. This man right here has been at the helm of trying to get a lot of that accomplished and doing a lot of great things. So, as county executive and getting in there, I had the new county executive on the show. I named that program Heavy is the Crown because I told him it's a crown, man. I mean, when you become the executive of Cuyahoga County, you're the man. Now, we can sit up there and say it, and I know you ain't gonna say it, so I'll say it for you. He the man right there, right? And so, with that being the case, a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of weight that goes with that. So, in your words, what is the county executive?
Well, I mean, if I had one sentence, it's to lift up people in this county,
Mhm,
to help people thrive, to help people improve their lives. We are a poor community generally. I
mhm,
mean, there's pockets of big wealth, but
mhm,
there's also large pockets of poverty. We need to make sure that everybody has opportunities to move ahead and that we help them.
mhm,
It's not just, taking away barriers, that's important, but it's also supporting people to move forward.
mhm,
And we've done that over and over again in
mhm,
many, many ways. That's the job of the county executive. The county is made up of 59 separate communities. A lot of county executives' work is to coordinate, to build collaborations. Obviously, the city of Cleveland's the biggest brother of the various communities, but there's 58 others too.
mhm,
And
mhm.
it's very important that we get people to work together, to all be rowing in the same direction if we're going to get things done. And we did that. We've done that over and over again. Probably the biggest thing is we came through the worst crisis in our history, and that's the pandemic. I mean, people die. That's
Mhm,
how bad it is.
mhm,
We came through it better than almost anywhere,
mhm,
but I would say better than almost all counties. And I keep in touch with my colleagues all over the country.
mhm,
We didn't delay. We moved very quickly. Just as an example, when the first announcements about the pandemic started flowing,
mhm,
people were scurrying around. You may remember we couldn't get
mhm, mhm,
sanitizers,
mhm.
we couldn't get masks, we couldn't get gloves. There was nothing available.
Right.
And everybody told us, wait, don't worry too much. The national stockpile will open up and everybody will get what they need.
Mm,
Well, we wouldn't wait.
mhm.
People were getting sick.
Right, right.
Lots of people were getting sick. And we had first responders out there. We had nurses,
Mhm,
teachers, doctors, people working in the jail. We had people all over that were coming into contact with people with COVID. And you don't want to sit there and tell them, wait, the sky's going to open up and you're going to get all the PPE you need. So I personally got on the phone with people I know all over the country. This is one of the areas that knowing people helps.
mhm,
I got on the phone with people and I called and asked for leads. Where can we get different types of PPE, the personal protective equipment? And most people had no idea. And those leads that we got, a lot of them were dead ends.
right.
But I had my staff follow up on every single lead and suggestion that we got, and we ended up finding lots of PPE. We ended up buying lots of PPE. We got
Mm,
contributions of PPE. We have now gathered, stored, distributed 27 million items of PPE,
wow,
more than any county our size,
wow.
and it has saved lives. It's because we didn't sit and wait.
No, y'all did a good job on that. I noticed that you guys had a program. The communications was daily out to the public about what was going on and how they can get assistance and help along the way. So I believe they did a good job. And during that whole process, how well did you guys work with the hospitals in here?
Well, the biggest problem for the hospitals was they were getting overrun.
Hmm.
Less so here than in other places. I mean, you may remember the news clips of people in New York City in
Yeah,
the hospitals.
in the hallways and the
uh,
trucks outside and
abs-
back and
uh,
all. Yeah, it was
well,
really, really bad.
here because we were on top of it, and the doctors and the nurses, the hospitals were all on top of things,
Mhm.
and we did communicate every day for a while about how to protect yourself and what to do and where to get the PPE. And we had our board of health was doing contact testing and tracing, and we were doing that in underserved areas. I mean,
Mhm.
we went out, we partnered with the board of health, saw that there were in minority communities, a lot
Correct.
of minority communities were not getting that
Correct.
service. So we contracted with Metro Health and the board of health and to go out into the minority communities, the underserved areas,
Mhm.
and make sure that we're getting connected with them.
Yeah, because y'all was working with a lot of churches and
Yeah,
others trying to do programs that give people certificates and everything to just come out there and just sign up and take the shot.
that's right.
Yeah.
We did that. And so we worked well with the hospitals. The hospitals here, of course, are excellent hospitals.
Mhm.
But you got good hospitals everywhere.
Right.
New York certainly had good hospitals and they were
Mm.
overrun.
Mhm.
We were not overrun.
Excellent.
They all work together well. We have spent many, many millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to bring us through this pandemic and through the downturn in the economy.
Mhm.
And I think it's been very successful. We've made sure that people had the headlines in the newspapers were that we were going to have a tsunami
Mhm. Mhm.
of evictions, for example, people
Mhm.
who were renters
Right.
because they lose their jobs, they lose their income.
Mhm.
We were able to put out a lot of money to keep renters in their homes. We were able to put out a lot of money to help small businesses survive, to help arts programs survive.
Mhm.
If you're a facility that brings in people to listen to music and people aren't going out, there's no revenue. So
Right.
we had to try to save those. We did, I think, a tremendous job of doing all that
Mhm.
and keeping us going. The fact is that despite having spent many millions of dollars, thanks, again, in part to the federal dollars that have come through,
Mhm.
one thing I'm very proud of is when I came into the county almost 8 years ago,
Mhm.
we had some financial challenges as a
Right.
county government.
Right.
Shortly after that, the state slashed sales taxes that were coming to the county through
Mhm.
the Medicaid managed care sales tax.
Mhm.
We lost tens of millions there.
Wow.
In a few weeks,
Mhm.
I will be leaving the county, the next executive, with more money, more resources, more in the rainy day fund, if you will,
Mm.
than ever in the county's history.
Wow.
We have a requirement that we have $125 million in our reserve fund.
Mhm.
I will be leaving, not me
Mhm.
personally, but
Oh, yeah, you
the
are because
the
you
county. Well,
leave
I had a lot of help.
it.
We will be leaving 300 million
Woo.
over instead of 125. One of the media outlets, I
Mhm.
won't mention a name, just ran a story this weekend saying that the county is running an 8 million or $9 million budget deficit.
Mm.
Well, first of all, that's true to the extent that it goes because we're giving a lot of increases in wages to our employees that worked so hard
Mhm.
and haven't gotten enough. Now with the inflation, they need more money to just make ends meet.
Mhm.
So we are giving some significant increases,
Mhm.
but in addition to that, the story wasn't complete
Mhm.
because the story doesn't mention that we're leaving $300 million in the reserve.
Wow.
Uh, the next county executive will have a lot easier time than we did. And, again, it's not just me.
Mhm.
County council has done a great job of
Yeah,
working with
right.
me on this. That's Purnell
He
Jones and
he
his
he was
staff.
actually Pernell was on the show, Friday.
Was he?
Yeah, I just did Pernell Friday.
Oh, great.
Yeah. He's an interesting guy.
He is an
He's
interesting
interesting.
guy.
You know he's in the comics?
Yes,
Yes.
his one of his things is he wants to do
Oh,
a statue.
Superman. Yeah. But do you know that he has 40,000 comic books at home? Yeah.
Holy
Yes.
smokes!
No.
No, I
No,
didn't know
y'all don't
that.
know. He's a real comic. He's into that.
And
Yeah.
he's a smart guy.
Smart guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
let
so county council has worked very well
yes.
with us. We don't always agree, but
Mhm. Mhm.
we typically come to the right conclusion. And when it comes to
Mhm.
managing a budget,
Yeah.
it's a cooperative effort.
Yeah, he said that exactly. Almost the same words you said. Said me and Armin don't always agree, but I love working with him. He said a lot of good stuff
Same
about you on
thing.
the show.
Same thing. Feelings mutual.
So let's talk about a couple of things. I want to start with Metro Health Hospital because you mentioned them and the
Yeah.
work you did. I do know that Metro does some things because I live in Cleveland Heights, and right around its severance, they did some expanding it and put a Metro place there as well. But with these hospitals closing and everything, how do you see Metro coming in to try to fill any of these voids?
Sure. So, first of all, let me say again, when I was first coming into office,
Mhm.
Metro was coming out of some difficult
Sure
financial
was. Definitely
situation.
was. Yeah.
Uh, Dr. Akram Boutros had taken over as the CEO, and he has done a miraculous job of managing that place,
Mhm.
managing the finances
Mhm.
during some difficult times too.
Mhm.
So he wanted to do this big new hospital.
Mhm.
The main hospital
Right.
was in bad shape.
Mhm.
I mean, they had a water tower in the basement
Wow.
that was 100 years old
Wow.
that was made of wood. Went down, he showed it to
It's
me.
like a barrel.
It was like a barrel. That's what a giant
A
barrel.
giant
And
barrel.
that's where the water was. So so they needed in place.
Wow.
And the management at Metro figured it out. They did a great job. We supported it, but
Mhm.
they did most of it themselves.
Now y'all did that without raising taxes, right? Mhm.
One of the things I'm very proud of is we did a lot of things without raising taxes. If you look at the media, the Buffalo Bills
Mhm.
football team
Mhm.
were threatening to move out of Buffalo.
Hmm.
And they said, we need a new stadium. The cost, the public dollars that went into that, they finally came to an agreement,
Mhm.
public and private. I think it was something like $850 million of
Wow.
public money into the new stadium.
Mhm.
We were faced with losing both the Cavaliers and the Guardians.
Mhm.
Both their leases were coming up, and they were both asking for help to renovate their facilities.
Mhm.
We worked out deals with both of them
Mm.
to extend their leases for, I think, at least 15 years each, and we did it. I mean, the combined was far less than $850 million.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we have worked very hard to do the right thing financially for this county. Metro Health has done a great job of managing their funds. I think people should keep in mind, and this has always given me comfort because you may recall that we didn't always have expanded need.
Mhm.
But in 2000 and around 10, the state expanded Medicaid to many, many more people. And that was in part facilitated because the federal government said that could happen.
Mhm.
Since then, there have been occasions where there's been efforts to trim back Medicaid.
Hmm.
Medicaid is the program for people who are poor
Mhm.
to make sure they have medical coverage.
Mhm.
And if that gets cut back, that's going to hurt
That impacts them all.
millions of people.
Mhm.
Well, that hasn't happened, thankfully, but I wasn't overly worried even when that was being threatened because we have this great facility called Metro Health
Mhm.
here in Cuyahoga County, which is basically our protection. People can get coverage at Metro Health no matter what, regardless of income.
Mm.
It's there for people. Good coverage, good health care.
Mhm. It's
And
not Medicare?
well, they get a lot of Medicaid, but even without the Medicaid,
Mm.
they've been covering people.
Really?
So they are a resource here that is unparalleled. We're so fortunate. And the doctors and nurses at Metro Health are really
Mhm.
superior. I mean, I've been there multiple times and I can tell you that they care more than you can possibly believe. They just built this new facility in Cleveland Heights.
Mhm.
That's a behavioral health facility. They were adding like 120, 140 beds, whatever it was, in Cleveland Heights. That was supposed to be supplementing the behavioral health continuum here in Northeast Ohio. One thing that's people don't recognize yet is that they have one of only two emergency departments for psychiatric care in the state.
Really?
Emergency ED for psych care. That will stay open, and it's staying open because the Adams Board has agreed to put some more money in there to
So
help
when
keep that open.
it's not gonna be in the hospital though, right? Because the hospital
It's gonna stay right where it is.
really?
Yeah, but there won't be other beds in the hospital for
Mhm.
people just to go into, so
Okay.
they'll go to the psych ED, and then that's only for up to, like, 23 hours
Mhm.
in a day,
Mhm.
and then they'll have to be transported somewhere else.
All right, so I wanna transition a little bit. Here's a question from the employees of Cuyahoga County. They said that there's a discrepancy in pay as it relates to the county, and they said that there's union employees that gets a 2 or 3% raise every year versus the non-union employees there who gets maybe a 0.5% or whatnot every year. And what was the challenge in as an executive in trying to balance that out for those? Now that Mr. Budish is leaving, he's going to explain to you guys why. Here it is.
Well, you may recall that when the new government came into being in 2010, 11, there were a variety of different agencies, completely separate, that were all put together. So, health and human service agencies were separate, the sheriff was separate, the public works was separate, and they all had their own pay scales.
Yes, they did.
And so you put it all together, there's going to be discrepancies from one agency to another. And then you pinpointed part of the problem going forward was that the collective bargaining employees, they're organized. They come in every 2 or 3 years when their contract expires. They come in, they bargain for more money.
Mhm.
For non-collective bargaining employees, supervisors and others, they don't have that benefit. Now we've been giving 2% across the board cost of living increases, but what has happened over time is that you correctly pointed out the non-bargaining. We've had this compression problem where bargaining employees get paid more and more and catch up to the supervisors and the other non-bargaining people.
Mhm.
So, in fact, I think it's this week we've been studying it. We have to work with the PRC, which is one of the agencies of the county. We did a survey of salaries, how they compare to other places as well as within the county. And what's going to happen, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school yet, we have a proposal before council to increase the salaries for the non-bargaining folks.
Oh,
It'll be average 6.25%.
that's
In
good news.
addition to the cost of living. So
Mhm.
it should be good news for
That's
the
good
employees.
news. Y'all heard it here. Yeah, that's good
Yeah, you
news for
hear
the
it here
employees.
first.
Y'all heard it here first.
Now
So
that's an average.
that's
Not
an
everybody's
average.
going to get 6%. Some
Right.
may get 5% or 4%. Some may get 7%.
Right.
It's going to be an average, but that will help
Mhm.
the compression problem.
I wanted to talk about Jane at the Hunter building because I think that's another hot item. I like to truly believe, because I know Armond Budish, that Armond is just not allowing these kids to be on the floor and that situation over there. So, just as we always know, there's always more to it than what we all know. So, Armond, tell the folks what's going on at Jane Etta Hunter and why are we having such an issue with those kids in Jane Etta Hunter?
So, first of all, for your viewers and listeners, Jane Edna Hunter is the building where
Yes.
our Children and Family Services is located. It's the last resort for custody for kids. If a parent, for example, can't handle their kid or won't handle their kid or kid runs away or whatever it might be, the county has the final responsibility. Lots of kids over the course of a year get dropped off there. The county employees immediately get on the phones and start to try to find them a placement, either temporary or permanent placement, where they can reside for a period of time.
Mhm.
90% of the kids that come in there, maybe even a little bit more, are easy to place
Mhm.
and get placed quickly in hours. And some of the kids get dropped off at 11 at night or 2 in the morning. This is not just a daytime thing. And so
Is somebody there that late at night?
somebody's always there.
Wow.
So they get most of the kids placed quickly.
Mhm.
Sometimes there are some portion of the kids, not a lot, but some that nobody will take,
Mhm.
that can't get placed. They
Go.
may have committed some crimes, but
Really?
they're not serious enough crimes
Right.
for the juvenile court to take.
Got you.
So, the word goes out about these kids. They
Mhm.
become known in the social services field, and places won't take them.
Mm.
We have had a devil of a time trying to place some of these kids. They just no place to go. Places like Palmerdale used to take these kids. Now they're closed.
Mhm.
It was too much. We have purchased a bed at Belfair, for example, to place a kid. Even they can't take the worst of the worst.
Mm.
And we pay for that bed. We're paying $1,000 a day
Mm.
for that bed because
Wow.
we got to have a place to put these kids. And
Mm.
even then, they don't always take the kids. So We've put out requests for bids to the community, to providers. We get nothing. We get no takers. So what are you going to do with the kids?
Mm.
So, yes, there are kids that stay overnight at Jane Edna Hunter. We try everything we can to not have that be. We finally, in the last round, we did a request for bids, I don't know, a month ago or something. And we finally got a bid from a combination of the Centers for Families and Children and the Christian Children's Home.
Mhm.
They merged together and they have agreed on a contract for a no reject. In
Ooh.
other words, they can't say
Say no.
no
Right.
and they can't
To
take them
turn
for an
and take
hour
them
and then
and
throw
turn
them
them loose.
away. Right.
Wow.
So if that works, if they can really do it, that'll solve a lot of the problem. Then there won't have to be kids staying overnight
You
at
think
Jane
you'll get
Edna.
it done before you leave?
We're trying. We're
Mhm.
trying. We've got the agreement made.
Mhm.
I mean, it's done. They're just now hiring staff. That's
Mhm.
the only delay. They have to have enough staff to make sure they can handle the kids.
Mhm.
But yes, I think we'll get it done before I leave.
Would the county ever consider this as I call it my strategic tips? My strategic move. Here's a strategic tip. Would the county consider maybe allowing more people to work at home and reduce their pay?
When the pandemic hit, we ordered people to stay home.
Mhm.
It was not safe to be in the public building.
Mhm.
It's not safe for the employees. It was not safe for the public. So we had as many people work from home as possible. Now, some don't have any choice. I mean, if you're a corrections officer in the jail, you
Yeah.
can't work from home.
Right.
But yes, we had many people from the county working at home. The problem is that we cannot have a situation where we're letting people work from home and have no assurance that they're doing their jobs.
That's correct.
So it's different than a private business. And I know people want to work from home whenever possible, but we're also responsible for the community and for those tax dollars.
Mhm.
So the answer to your question is we called most people back, and most people have to work in the buildings.
Bring y'all asses to work. All right. So we go talk about the hotel, which was another big thing. That Hilton Hotel. They like to throw in the press about the millions of dollars that was spent on the hotel and that we call it the medical mart. Right? They said that the building is empty and ain't nothing going on. What happened with those projects to you and your words, or what's going on with those projects?
Well, first of all, both projects were done before I came to the county. So I mean, that's my disclaimer.
Right.
The hotel
Uh-huh.
was absolutely critical to get the Republican National Convention to come to Cleveland.
Mm.
If you don't have a convention hotel, they're not coming to Cleveland, period. That
Mhm.
was made very clear. So that was the impetus for having a convention hotel.
Is that good math?
Absolutely. It's not dollar for dollar,
Mhm.
but having a convention like that improved our notoriety
Okay.
nationally and internationally in
Mhm.
ways that, we still don't know all the different ways. But
Mhm.
yes, I think it was very worthwhile,
Okay.
very useful.
So let's talk about this jail, man. What's going on? All of that in your point of view. I'm give you the flow on this jail.
Well, you started off by mentioning all the different positions that were combined in the
Mhm.
new government. And overall, I think that was wise
Mhm.
because, I mean, take the sheriff, for example. Should the sheriff be elected separately or should he or she be appointed by the county executive? The difference is between a politician and a professional.
Mhm.
If you have an elected sheriff, same with the engineer, same with the recorder.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're electing those people, you're going to get a politician. That's what we had.
Mhm.
And politician may not be the right person to run a recorder's office
Mhm.
or a clerk's office or
Mhm.
an engineer's office or a
Mhm.
coroner's office, whatever it might be. We have had professional sheriffs since the change of government.
Mhm.
If you look at who they are people who had the experience. They're not politicians. I think not most of them, if not all of them, said they wouldn't run if there was you wouldn't have those people.
Mhm.
So I'm in favor of the appointed sheriff. Having said that, there were a number of problems at the jail,
Mhm.
which we have corrected or are in the process of correcting. The biggest thing, people died and we had a dysfunctional healthcare system in the jail, which I inherited. We had Metro Health that was providing the doctor and we had the county hiring the nurses.
Mm,
And who do they report to? Who's in charge? You
mm,
can't have masters. You got to have somebody in charge.
mhm,
We have turned everything over to Metro,
mhm,
and they are now running it. And they got a huge award certification in the last year or two for their medical care in the jail.
mhm,
It's working. We could go through the various claims in the jail, of problems. It's almost impossible to keep drugs out of a jail, for example.
mhm,
But we're doing it maximum extent possible. We've got 2 dogs, drug sniffing dogs now in the jail that prowl through.
mhm,
We have like TSA machines that you got to go through. The prisoners when they come in to make sure they're not smuggling in
mm,
drugs. We put even the COs go through, the corrections officers go through an X-ray machine,
mhm,
doing everything we can now to protect the prisoners. One of the things I was most proud of was during the pandemic.
mhm,
I'm sure you've read congregate facilities like jails and
mhm,
prisons around the country. Prisoners were dying right and left because of COVID.
mhm.
One prisoner gets COVID and everybody gets it, and they got to be there. So, how do you protect the others? We had a total of one death that was related
To COVID.
to COVID
Really?
in 2.5 years, one death of a
Mm,
prisoner. And that's unheard of
mhm,
because with the help of the prosecutor and the judges and the defense bar, first of all, when COVID hit, we reduced the population in the jail in half
mhm,
from 2,000 down to below 1,000 people. And
mhm,
that gave us space in the jail
mhm,
to quarantine, to isolate people who got sick or were exposed to COVID.
mhm,
And that kept a lot of people safe and healthy and alive. We did the same sort of thing with the homeless shelters and people who were homeless.
mhm,
Homeless shelters are another congregate facility where people could pick up COVID and, spread through like wildfire. We shrunk the population in the homeless shelters in half.
mm.
We placed them in with family members. We placed them in hotels,
I remember this doing
uh,
hotels, yeah.
and we were able to keep people safe. So we prevented a lot of deaths, kept people healthy much better than most places around the country.
Now that the facility itself is a whole nother thing where we just know that the facility is in a position that it needs to be replaced. It's old, antiquated, and kind of beat up on a little bit. It's been quite a while. So building a new prison should have been the priority. I was part of that team to help put it together. And one of the things I did know is going towards the end, I think we were starting to turn it a little bit because some of the folks who were against it just really was felt against it because they felt they just wasn't part of the process in the beginning. And so they just wanted to be a part of it. And I think we were getting to that point. They just wanted to vent. And it was a small group of people versus the masses of people in the community. I think those were the only ones who wanted to come down there every meeting just to say what they wanted to say. Not to say they didn't have good reasons. They had their reasons and they're valid. But I just believe that they wanted to do that. And the people who probably didn't care or didn't say anything. So with that being the case, do you believe that the next county executive is going to move forward with it, or what's your hopes with that?
Let me start with the fact that we need a new jail.
Mhm,
We have cured almost every one of the deficiencies that the state of Ohio inspections have brought to our attention. The ones we haven't fixed are the ones that can't fix without a new jail. You can't change the size of the cells without a new jail. You can't bring more sunlight into the building
that's correct.
without a new jail. We need a new jail. That is a very unhappy place.
Mhm,
And I think everybody agrees we need a new jail.
mhm,
There were the two main reasons that people criticized. One was the site that was selected
mhm,
by a large group of
mhm,
people
mhm.
was a site that needed remediation. It had chemicals, toxic chemicals in the ground. I think that the media blew it way out of proportion.
Way out of proportion.
And the fact is that critics brought in experts to say, can this be fixed? Can
Mm,
this be remediated? They said, yes.
yeah.
They said it can be made
Mhm,
safe. And in fact, if you want to build a jail or any building, you want to build an apartment building
mhm,
in Cleveland,
mhm,
every place has chemicals. You got to clean these properties
mhm,
and you can
mhm,
safely. They've been hundreds and hundreds of times.
Mhm, mhm,
Remediation
mhm,
has happened and it's been
mhm.
effective.
That's correct.
And the experts came in and said that could be done here.
The guy who owns the property, the way they played him out, I mean, he owns this property. He had people who've been working there for years and that kind of thing. And to go out there and just say that the property is toxic and is
Right.
all of that was really, really bad. Nobody had a problem with him moving his business when he wanted to move it in the other ward. But then the people over there said no. So he said, okay, we're going to stay there. But it wasn't an issue about his business or an issue about the land. And I think that that's the problem I got with it. The media and a few other folks down there who didn't want to see the project go jumped on the coattails of, oh, it's toxic, it's bad, it's ugly, we shouldn't do it. And they kind of did that guy very wrong. I think he has a business, and they probably opened themselves up for some suits because I'd be like, "Hey, you see the commercials all the time. Have you had mesonemiola or whatever it is, or that kind of stuff?" So that's the kind of thing I didn't like about that process. I thought that was pretty ugly. I didn't think we need to do that, and I thought that the county did a decent job of looking for areas. So if there is one, we need to find it and kind of go from there.
We did a very, very thorough job of
Mhm.
investigating the properties that would fit the criteria that the steering committee came up with.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted it someplace near downtown.
Mhm.
It had to be 30 or 40 acres in size so
Mhm.
that you could live on one level or two levels
Right.
at the most. There were certain requirements it had to fit,
Right.
and there aren't that many properties that would fit that.
That's correct.
And they went through all of them and they picked out this site, and good luck with finding another site that's gonna meet all those criteria. And the other big issue is you have to be able to pay for it.
Right.
And a jail is hundreds of millions of dollars, whether
Mhm.
it's 500 or 700 or
Mhm.
whatever it might turn out to be,
Mhm.
I don't know. It's gonna be very expensive, more expensive than you can pay for without a revenue source.
Mhm.
One of the things we've done very carefully in the county, managing the funds in a way that we've come out of this with financial status,
Mhm.
we don't take on debt without a revenue source.
Mm.
And so the revenue source that we agreed on, me and county council, was to extend an existing sales tax. Nobody would have had to pay a penny more than what
Then
they're
with them.
currently paying.
Mm.
It would have just extended the sales tax that had been created initially for the convention center. That is coming to an end, and we would have just extended that into the future and use that fund to pay for a new jail and, for that matter, a justice center.
Mhm.
We were prepared, we being me and the county council, to put that on the county council agenda, to support it and pass it.
Mm.
Unfortunately, some of the people on the committee didn't want that to happen before the new county executive came in. We were willing to take the heat. Putting an extension of a sales tax through is not popular.
Right.
I was willing to do it because it was necessary to
Mhm.
build a new jail.
Mhm.
That was the only reason.
So what I'm gonna do now, man, that camera right there belongs to you. Just move your water bottle because we don't want that in your shop. We're gonna let you talk to this camera. You can say whatever you want as long as you want. This camera belongs to you. Armond Budish.
Well, I'll keep it short. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate it. You've been a great help to the county, and for that, I'll always be appreciative.
Thank you.
You gave me an opportunity to talk about some of the great initiatives that we've had at the county and how we've basically set out to improve people's lives. And that's been our whole motivation. That's been our whole agenda here, is how can we help the people of Cuyahoga County? And we've been doing that. We've been doing it in a whole lot of ways. We've done it through good times and we've done it through terrible times like the pandemic. But we've come through very well. And as I said, right now, we're in great shape as a county. We have more money as a county government than we've ever had. We've got a bunch of programs that are just starting up that should be very helpful to the community. We're bringing in businesses. We're expanding broadband. We're expanding the pre-K program. We're doing all kinds of great things. And I have the most optimism that I've had in a long time for the future. I think that we're going to see great things coming out of Cuyahoga County and Cleveland, and I'm looking forward to watching. So thank you, Ken, and I'll keep in touch.
All right, y'all. That's Armond Budish, our county executive, and we'll see you on our next episode. Peace.